Hey there, brilliant minds. Welcome back. It's Matty Adams, the channel where I research stuff and tell you about it. Buckle up for part 3 of our epic global flood series. And a quick recap to get us fired up. In part 1, we uncovered the mind-blowing ancient cataclysms of the Younger Dryas. Massive outburst floods like Lake Missoula, Lake Agassiz, the Black Sea deluge, and the drowning of Doggerland. Science used to think everything changed slowly and gradually. But cutting-edge evidence shows sudden apocalyptic bursts, walls of water raging in days or weeks, reshaping the planet overnight. Then in part 2, we fast-forwarded to the 21st century's brutal modern floods, Pakistan's 2022 nightmare, glacial outbursts in Switzerland and Alaska, and the shocking Milwaukee deluge of 2025. We stacked them side by side with those ancient beasts and asked, are we seeing history repeat itself? And now, hold on to your butts for part 3, the best dam episode ever. We've explored nature's ancient fury and today's raging rivers, but what if the deadliest flood threats of tomorrow are the ones that we are building right now? Meet the Three Gorges Dam, the world's current hydropower colossus. It's on China's Yangtze River. It's an engineering titan taming one of the planet's mightiest rivers, but it's also triggered landslides, seismic risks, and fears of catastrophic failure that could unleash hell on millions downstream. In history, it's littered with dam horrors that erased entire communities in minutes. Think the 1889 Johnstown Flood, a 20 million ton wall of water obliterating everything, killing over 2,200. Or the 1975 Banqiao catastrophe in China, where one breach sparked a chain reaction. Over 61 dams collapsed, claiming up to 171,000 lives in a biblical deluge. We've played with water's power for centuries, and we've paid dearly when it bites back. But here's the jaw-dropper. Construction is already underway on something even bigger, the Yarlung Tsangpo hydropower project on the Brahmaputra River in Tibet. This megadam complex is poised to generate 3 times the power of the Three Gorges Dam, so you could call it the 9 Gorges Dam, harnessing one of the deepest canyons on Earth. It's hailed as a clean energy game changer, but it's in a quake-prone zone near international borders with risks of altering flows, ecosystems, and potential downstream disasters for India and Bangladesh. So we have to ask, how big is too big? When does the promise of endless power cross the line, where environmental devastation, seismic gambles, or even tiny shifts in Earth's rotation outweigh the benefits? Before we get to the Three Gorges and the Yarlung Tsangpo monster, let's take a look back at some lessons from history, some of the world's most epic dam failures. Dams can fail spectacularly, often due to under-design, poor maintenance, or ignoring warnings, mirroring today's concerns. Today, our engineering may be better, but the projects are also way bigger, leading to more possible points of failure. Let's travel to Johnstown, Pennsylvania in 1889. The South Fork Dam has been battered with heavy rain for days, and it finally fails. The dam wasn't being maintained properly, and in 1889, after several days of heavy rainfalls, it finally ruptured, releasing 14.55 million cubic meters of water, with a volumetric flow that temporarily equaled the average flow rate of the Mississippi River. So this goes to show one of the major flaws of human thinking. Often, when we build things, we don't always consider the ongoing maintenance. And because of that, 2,208 people lost their lives in 1889. Or what about the worst dam flood ever? The Banqiao Dam, China, in 1975. Typhoon Nina dumped torrential rains on the Iron Dam, which was designed for a once-in-a-thousand-year flood. The Banqiao Dam, along with 61 other dams, all failed, causing catastrophic, widespread flooding. Official death tolls were 26,000 from flooding, plus 145 to 200K from famine and disease, upping the total to about 240,000 human lives. A 30-foot wall of water raced at 30 miles per hour, wiping out towns overnight, much like some of the glacial outburst floods we have discussed in previous videos, but this one was made by man. Floods are bad, okay? I think we all know this, but the dangers of modern megadams go far beyond just flooding. let's take a look at the Three Gorges as an example. The Three Gorges Dam didn't just block a river, it fundamentally changed the environment around it. Upstream, the fast-moving Yangtze was turned into a massive, slow-moving reservoir, flooding ecosystems, destroying habitats, and contributing to the collapse or extinction of several native species. The slower water traps pollution and sediment, it lowers oxygen levels, and it alters water chemistry. The new giant lake also created local microclimate effects. Higher humidity, more fog, slightly warmer nights, and small localized increases in rainfall near the reservoir. Downstream, the dam starves the river of sediment that once rebuilt riverbanks, floodplains, and the Yangtze Delta, accelerating erosion and harming agriculture and fisheries. Around the reservoir itself, the biggest ongoing problem is geological. Fluctuating water levels saturate steep valley walls and increase groundwater pressure, and destabilize already fragile slopes, leading to thousands of landslides and occasionally even small earthquakes. While the dam technically redistributed enough mass to slow Earth's rotation by a few microseconds, that effect is functionally meaningless. The real consequences are local, environmental, and ongoing, not planetary. But let's not act like a small alteration in the Earth's rotation is negligible, especially if there are plans for a dam 3 times larger, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. And as a fun bonus, so far we've talked about how dams have unleashed some of the history's worst floods, like Banqiao and Johnstown, wiping out entire towns in minutes. Since we're talking about humans altering water on a level that can alter the entire planet, let's talk about the crazy levels of groundwater that we have extracted. So between 1993 and 2010 alone, we extracted enough water from the ground to raise sea levels by 6 millimeters and shift the North Pole eastward by nearly 31 inches or 80 centimeters. That's more impact on polar drift than melting glaciers in some periods. Hotspots like Northwest India and Western North America are the biggest culprits. In the longer term, we are essentially taking water from the ground and we are moving it to the oceans, unbalancing Earth like a wobbly top. So next time someone says humans can't affect the planet, tell them that we've already changed its tilt. Alright, now let's talk about the biggest dam project ever conceived, the Yarlung Tsangpo hydropower project. Planned high on the Tibetan Plateau on the Brahmaputra River, planned to generate a staggering 3 times more energy than the Three Gorges Dam. This dam will harness one of the deepest canyons on Earth. It's hailed as a green energy game changer, but in a quake-prone zone near international borders with risks of altered flows and shattered ecosystems, and that doesn't even include political implications of impounding water that would have otherwise flown downstream to India or Bangladesh. As a quick side note, Ethiopia is having similar political problems with its Grand Renaissance Dam. The water that flows from the Blue Nile eventually reaches Egypt, and Egypt already has a very dense population on its tiny strip of arable land, so they have voiced serious concerns if Ethiopia fills the reservoir too quickly. Ethiopia has so far avoided large-scale conflict by slowly filling the reservoir in stages, but over time it will likely not matter too much, and Egypt could still end up in water trouble. So just something else to think about there. Besides environmental and orbital rotational changes, did anyone have water wars on their bingo card for 2030? Buckle up. If the Three Gorges Dam can cause micro shifts in our rotation and draining groundwater is altering our poles, imagine what something 3 times the size of the Three Gorges can do, and how all of these massive scale water changes by humans can combine to make larger effects. Think of tipping points and positive feedback loops. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think the new proposed Yarlung Tsangpo hydropower project is just too damn big? Should we have cities of 12 million people in the middle of the desert, draining groundwater and the few major rivers with dams? Do major laws or actions need to be put in place when it comes to new dams and groundwater access? Let me know what you think, and as always, thanks for joining me on this adventure and learning with me. Make sure to check out parts 1 and 2 of this series if you haven't already, and have a wonderful day.